There are two reasons why this is very difficult to get past, or actually three. So the first simple reason is usually to get stuff through, you have to avoid the filibuster, and that means having 60 votes. They're trying to do this under a procedure called reconciliation, which requires 51 votes. That has a bunch of rules that are very technical and very, very difficult to get through. Second is that this is an enormous bill. It potentially raises the US national debt by 3, 4, maybe even $5 trillion. And that ties into the third point, which is the Trump coalition is just an extraordinary and unusual economic coalition. He's a populist, which means he brought along the American working class in large measure, but he's the head of the Republican Party, which historically saw itself as a party of fiscal responsibility, even if it hasn't acted that way in some time. And then within that coalition, there are deficit hawks who really couldn't be at all happy with what's going on right now, which is, by many measures, perhaps some of the most irresponsible fiscal policy in yours or my lifetime.
Yeah, and the CBL out with its latest number, 3.3 trillion is what it's going to add to the federal debt, which means, let's say it manages to get over all these hurdles, right? President signs off on it, it becomes a law. Then it's over to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent to continue record debt issuance. In some countries, growing your way or trying to grow your way out of debt it can work. In the U.S.'s case, I'm not so sure, because you're trying to do that at the same time you're trying to raise tariffs, and I just don't know. The economic strategy seems to be a little unsettling, if not confusing. What do you think?
So if you think about this as an economic strategy, it's incoherent on its face. It's going to surely raise interest rates, which will filter through to the interest rates that ordinary Americans pay on their mortgages and so on. The claim coming out of the White House, and one hears Republicans repeat, is this will stimulate enough growth that the tax cuts will pay for themselves. That is just utterly absurd on its face. We heard the same thing about the previous set of Trump tax cuts. They didn't do it. We heard it about the Bush tax cuts. They didn't do it. We heard it about the Reagan tax cuts. They didn't do it. You simply can't grow your way out of tax cuts this big from a tax base that was already quite small. So I don't see a way forward. I think the smarter way to think about this instead is a political strategy, which is they're going to spend all the money now, and that means there's less money left for future presidents and future White Houses to spend. They know that right now it's a Republican in the White House, so they're happy to spend the money now, understanding that in the future, whoever has to clean up the mess, it's a 50% chance of being a Republican and a 50% chance of being a Democrat. So it's a very dangerous game of chicken, where they're saying we're going to spend the money when we're in power and we're going to leave it to the other guys to clean up. And of course, the problem is if the other guys play the same strategy, that's when you end up with a really big fiscal crisis.
Yeah, Justin, I mean, I think the bigger worry is it's not just handing it over to the next administration and saying, look, it's your problem now, I'm out of here. If the debt continues at this trajectory, right, it also means that, I guess, generationally, today's Americans are literally going to be voting to say, look, we're going to spend now and let our kids or grandkids worry about how to pay for it later in their lifetimes.
Very much so. Yeah. It's funny, this is an argument that I hear a lot, and it's absolutely true. If we give our kids a big debt, then we're essentially giving them bigger taxes in the future. It's actually, I think, at a core philosophical issue for thinking about budgets. Look, cutting tax rates in the tax code is easy, but that doesn't actually cut taxes. Cutting spending cuts taxes. Because what's happening is we're going to grow the debt, and we have to pay that debt, and someone's going to have to pay for it. So in some sense, the president hasn't cut a penny of taxes. What he's doing instead is he's imposing those taxes on future generations. Now, I think, Martin, the harder question is, can future generations afford it? If we have ongoing economic growth, they're going to be incredibly wealthy. And so, yes, maybe we are leaving future generations a national debt, but by the same token, we're leaving them roads and technology and hopefully a functional system of government. So they're inheriting some positives as well as those negatives.